Why now? There was generally consensus that this had come from an animal origin. But now it looks like the president wants to investigate again the possibility that it could have been a lab leak. What's changed?
Well, good afternoon. And what's changed, basically, there are a couple things. There have been continuing reports from China, from various sources and fragmentary data, that the story may have been rather more complex than the way the Chinese announced it initially. And given the fact that the World Health Organization's inspection team that went there a couple of months back really wasn't able to get to grips with all the information, then you add into it reports that several of the workers, of the staff members of one of the institutes in Wuhan were hospitalized for severe flu-like symptoms in November 2019, that is before the disease itself was identified and announced. All of this continues to fuel a certain degree of controversy about whether it was either directly from one of the so-called wet markets, that is wildlife that is brought in to be sold as specialty exotic meats, whether it was accidentally released from a lab because of certain conditions or procedures that weren't perfect for the purposes, or most darkly, the way you described the former president's presentation. But in any case, there is a mound of electronic information available, and the charge from President Biden is that the intelligence officials, the intelligence agencies, now have to go through all of this and, in effect, comb through, I don't know, whatever a terabit of a terabit is of data to try to figure out which of those possibilities is most likely. And the reason why it's become more potent is because there is not a formal, final, definitive answer. And Republicans, for the most part, and some scientists, continue to charge that the answer is not sufficiently clear to rule out any of the more malign possibilities. And I think for Joe Biden, President Biden's perspective, it's far better to be seen looking to be doing something on this, even if no definitive answer actually arrives from this process. I mean, 90 days, 3 months is not all that long when you come down to it, and inevitably there may be extensions, and when the final report comes out, it may list probabilities and possibilities, but no definitive conclusions.
It's important, Brooks.
Of a number of advices.
I guess it's important to understand what the origin is, because that's the only way we as a world can attend to trying to prevent it happening again. That would be the reason that one has to try and get to the bottom of it, is it not?
Well, it's part of the reason. I mean, it is true that there have been leakages from virology labs in the past, and it is certainly true that many people are concerned that there are crossover possibilities for viruses from laboratory circumstances and wild or exotic animals, and the combination or recombination there too. So knowing more allows scientists to be more attentive to what causes these pandemics. And you'll remember that 5 years or so ago, there were reports saying one of the great crises that has to be confronted by people in the future is the possibility of heretofore unknown pandemics, for which there is obviously no vaccine or cure. So this does become important. What we will not, with almost certainly not know, is a precise definition of exactly what happened. The Chinese may not know either.
The WHO has walked on eggshells around China, because obviously they sent a team in. They, whatever the Chinese wanted to show the WHO is what they saw, and then they left with none the wiser, let's put it that way. What is going on at the WHO? Isn't it their responsibility to actually push harder against the Chinese government?
Well, you would hope that that would be the case, but remember, the WHO is primarily an information gathering and dissemination body. It doesn't have vast laboratory resources. It doesn't have a major investigatory mechanism or mechanics to do this kind of examination. They rely on, in large part, on the cooperation and information from the countries concerned. And I think that they are reluctantly concluding that the information they got so far from China was less than complete and less than comprehensive. Now, I think it's important to put the whole thing into a larger political context. What does this do to America-China relationships? Well, the relationship itself is not in a good place. There are any number of issues that can make it worse. In the grand scheme of things, I think the strategic issue around Taiwan, the issue of cyber hacking, the issue of intellectual property protection, those may be more important than this, but this catches the eye very quickly because I think all of us at this point are well aware of the fact that a virus came out of somewhere and has been making millions of people sick and many hundreds of thousands of people dead. And so there's a political cost to Joe Biden as president for not pursuing this possibility, even if the answer is neither definitive nor pointing to any sort of malign effort on the part of China.
Thank you very much for your time. Brooks Spector, former U.S. diplomat in Africa and East Asia and associate editor for Daily Maverick.